In this video, let's take a look at a practice grad standard so that we're ready for the grad standard, which is tomorrow. The idea is you're going to have two types of questions. One type of question is where you're going to have a price of a used car, which we know drops by some percentage. Therefore, we know that it's multiplication based. And your job is going to be able to write the equation for it. Well, the equation is going to be y equals a times b to the x. A is what it starts at, the initial value, and B is what it goes by, or the multiplier. So what your job is going to be is you're going to be expected to be able to calculate all this as far as being able to write the equation and come up with the solvable problems. Now when we graph the cost of a used car, oftentimes we'll be thinking that as an exponential curve because it's changing exponentially. And it would start at $4,000 and it's going to curve down. It's going to have an asymptote at 0. It's never going to be a negative value. So we think it's something like this. So what we do then is we set up a table and we say, well, when we bought it, for me, it was new. It was $4,000. It was a used car, but it was new to me. 3 years later, it was worth $2,916. Well, if I do next divided by previous, and in this case I take the third root of 2916 divided by 4,000, then when I put that in my calculator and I go 2916 divided by 4,000, take the third root. So for me, in doing that, 2916 divided by 4,000, and I'm taking the third root, I see that my multiplier is 0.9. So my multiplier, my b value is 0.9. That means that it's multiplying by 0.9 each time. That's that. My starting value is 4,000. So my equation would simply be starts at 4,000 and it multiplies by 0.9 to the x. Now, if I want to figure out what it's going to be worth 7 years from now, all I have to do, or 7 years, in 7 years of ownership, that means just go down to the table on number 7. So I plug in the 7 up there for x. So it'd be 4,000 times 0.9 to the 7th power, or that would be approximately 1913.19 is what it would be worth. Plugging that in. Finally, when will it be worth exactly $1,500? That's this question. It goes in for y. My car will be worth $1,500 when it starts out as 4,000. It's times 0.9 to the x. And then I divide both sides by 4,000. I get 0.375 equals 0.9 to the x. And then I have to use logarithms to do that. Most of us are using log base 9 on both sides, so I do log base 0.9 on both sides of 0.375. Equals log base 0.9 of 0.9 to the x. Then these are going to cancel. X equals that number, and that number is my answer. Now some of you can type that in. Some of you have to do the change of base and type it in a little bit differently. So what I'll do here is I'll go log of 0.375 divided by log of 0.9, and I get an answer of 9.309. So basically 9.31 years is when it'll be exactly worth $1,500. Now, that's all fine and great. There's no shifted asymptotes here. You will have a question like this on your grad standard where it starts by something, ends at something, and it's just y equals a times b to the x. That's what we've been doing for a long time. The asymptote there is at 0. Now, what if the asymptotes get shifted and we say, well, we know a car, when you graph a car or buy a car, it can never drop below $250. So that would be something like this. If I buy this car, I paid $4,000 for it. Even if it's a hunk of junk, it can't drop below $250 because I can sell it for scrap metal for $250. So it's not going to drop below that. If that happens, then that changes my equation because now I'm going to have y equals what it starts at, what it goes by to the x power, but then plus some k value, and in this case 250. So the way that we solve these is with our xy table and our y minus 250 table. And now things are a little bit different because my 0 was 4,000, but if I take 250 off, it's 3,750. And then in year 3, it was 2916, which becomes $2,666. Then I take next divided by previous. Remember, all the numbers that matter are actually in this third column. The third column is the only place that it matters. So if I do next divided by previous here, take the third root. So I'm doing the third root of this. When I do that, I get my multiplier as approximately 0.8925. 8925 is my third root of that number, and so that becomes my multiplier. So that's my b value. This is my a value. So y minus 250 is what my equation starts at, because that's the column I'm working with. Starts at 3750 times 0.8925 to the x. Then I bring the 250 over by adding it, and I've got my full equation as y equals 3750 times 0.8925 to the x plus 250. And then here you will be asked the same kind of questions. What is it going to be worth in 7 years? 7 years, just plug that in and solve. When is it going to be worth 1500? Put the 1500 over here and solve. And those are the kind of things that you need to be able to do to pass your grad standard with flying colors. So if I'm going to plug this in, I go 3750 times 0.8925 to the 7th power, and then plus 250, and that's this number. It'll be worth 1941.57, 1941.57 in 7 years. Okay, and then in the other version, for solving for 1500, 1500 goes in over here, and it's 3750 times that number to the x plus 250. I subtract the 250, now I'm at 1250 equals 3750 times my multiplier to the x, which is that 0.829 number, divide by 3750. So if I take 1250 divided by 3750, I get 1/3. So 1/3 equals 0.8925 to the x, and then I'd log base 0.8925 on both sides. So log base 0.8925 of 1/3 equals x. And so then when I do that, I can either type that in, or I can, on this calculator, I can actually type it in. So then I can put log base 0.8925, and then this would be 1/3, and I'm going to get 9.66 years. So as you can see, you do need to be able to solve these. I went through these rather quickly so that you could see how they're done. This is exactly what your standard is like. You should know how to do those types of questions.